Hey guys, it's RC. Welcome back to our second edition of the OOTP18 walkthrough and setup series. Last video we ended, I was generating the league. I had gone through the setup wizard and the game was processing. So now it has finished and we have a personal message. So this is exactly where we left off after it processed and actually started the league. So we'll hit OK. We're into our manager's office and mailbox. Here's the email. We have taken control. 29-year-old native was questioned for several minutes. They hope the signing is a good one, while others feel he is in over his head. Kind of generic, but still, it's nice. It adds a little bit of a little bit of personality. And then you get an email from the owner, Mitch Brown. Welcome to the organization. Here's some goals. We want to win, turn a profit. If you complete these goals, that will keep me happy. Reach the playoffs this year. We want a total balance of $380,000 this year and reach the World Series in the next 2 seasons. Well, as any California Angels fan will tell you, in 1975, that did not happen. And that did not happen for quite a little while before we reached the World Series. But hey, it's a shot. Mitch Brown, let's take a look at our owner. He is 47, so he's not much older than my coach. He is unmerciful. Okay, well that's not a good trait. He is an economizer, which means he is a penny pincher, does not like to spend money. That's not good. But he is hands off, and his priority is a profit. So for you to keep your job, you've got to keep this in mind. So he already told us in the email, turning a profit will keep me happy. Now the problem is right now we're slated to be almost 1.4 million in the hole, and he wants us to have a $380,000 profit. Now our record history, we've been pretty mediocre, which yes they were. Right around 500 every year, yes they were. About $4.5 million in budget this year. Revenue and expense, 406,000 in revenue, 381 in expenses, and attendance has really dropped off from a high of 1.4 million. Last year they brought in 917,000. And so we're probably expecting somewhere in the vicinity of 744 to 917 this year. This is your attendance is really driven by your performance on the field. Now, I don't want to get a ton into actual gameplay, at least not right now. I just kind of want to show you how to get around various screens, how to set things up. So let's go to our home page. Okay. When you log into your team, and if you are in control of a team, this is where you're going to come to. So here there's a little, you have all these little toolbars. Sorry for the pop-up. You'll see some of those. That's my email popping up. So you have a couple of toolbars here. You have the main toolbar with these options. You have the sub toolbars underneath, depending on what tab you're in. And then you have this right navigational toolbar, which deals with your manager. JL, that's me. So we have our manager's office, email, a search list for players, options, basically the league website, the league homepage with standings, stats, and then the team page. So that's where we are now. We're actually at the team homepage. So if you ever want to get back to this, it's that button right there. Okay, so I could go in and I could be looking at my email. There it is. I want to delete all my messages. Yes, I do. Oh my gosh, how do I get there? I want to come right back over here. Boom. And there I am. All right, so a lot of information will show up in here. You have your standings within your division. These are your team and pitching leaders just for your team. Your schedule, this will typically show your last couple of results and your next couple of upcoming games. Your team ranking in these major categories only within the American League, though, in your league. So if you're a National League team, that would be NL rankings, and any current injuries that you're dealing with. Now keep in mind we're in 1975. In 1975, it was more common to have a pitcher throw a complete game than to have relievers come in and throw anything in relief, or let alone have a save. Now when you mouse over these guys, you can see it brings up historical data. So Mickey Scott is slated to be our closer, but if you look on his card, he has not had a single save. He only threw 22 games for Montreal last year. So saves were not a big part of the game. It was more about complete games. In fact, let's pull up Ryan's card. So last year he had 22 wins, 16 losses, 41 starts, and they do not have complete games on there, so we'll go into pitching stats. Game started. I'm just kind of, again, I haven't actually seen this, so I'm just looking around. There should be a way to see all of your, there should be a way to see expanded stats, and I'm just not sure where they're at. All right, well, we'll keep an eye out on that. Anyway, let's get back to the home page, and we'll delve into the players a little bit more. But you can see your projected starting lineup, their batting average, their power, their power and production numbers, your rotation, your bullpen, and then a list of your top prospects. Okay, now that's in this. So we want to meet the team. All right, well, here's Nolan, the Ryan Express Ryan. He's 28. He's making $402,000 a year. He's considered a 5-star player. Went 22-16 with a 289 last year. Frank Tanana, Jerry Rimdog Remy. That brings back memories. A lot of this information will be duplicated elsewhere in screens. So like here's our owner. Now the owner has his own screen, but here we can kind of see a recap. So it gives us our attendance, which was 16th in the league. We're 17th in budget, 13th in player payroll. We have no money for free agents. We have a little over $2 million for extensions. We don't have a very good market size. Our fan loyalty is poor, and our current fan interest is basically average. You can choose to play with or without coaches. I did not see a place to turn that off. Player development, personnel, there we go. So usually I will turn this off. I don't like all this. It's too convoluted for me. You can have more detail, you can have less detail, but that shows just the width and breadth of the game. You have your upcoming schedule once we get into the season, information, you have retired numbers, history of the team, so we can look all the way back to 1961 when they started. So, there's all, that's under your, that's in your team, your chemistry. Just like they say, chemistry in a clubhouse can affect your team performance. You could have a bad team locker room and have a lot of talent, and they're not going to perform well. You could have less talent, but you could have a great chemistry, and they could overperform. So, that's always good to know. We do have a selfish player in Mickey Rivers. Thanks, Mickey. I think that's one reason they ended up getting rid of him. Unmotivated Mickey Scott. So maybe that's a guy they shouldn't have signed from Montreal, but because he's already on the team. And then this gives you your chemistry overview, and you can kind of see who's happy, who's not. Everybody's kind of mediocre right now, and our content is a little above the middle. So that will fluctuate during the season, and you'll need to keep a look on that. You might want to trade a player that's causing dissension in the locker room. Maybe you pick up a player that he won't be a starter and he probably won't play a lot, but maybe he ties my locker room together. So those are things you'll have to think about. Baseball cards. Now, you have to create these when you start. It does take a little while, so I'm going to not do that right now. And your settings. So you can change your team initials. California, Maryland. Really? No, we're going to clear that. Now they're in Anaheim. Yeah. Okay, so hey, if anybody from OOTP checks this out, the California Angels were not in California, Maryland. They're in Anaheim, California. Just a thought. So I'm going to fix that because I think LA, California is probably bigger than California, Maryland. And hit enter after editing to lock it in. All right, so I just hit enter. Anaheim Stadium. I think it was actually called Angel Stadium, but that's okay. You can design your own park, edit the ballpark. We're going to go with that. Let's look at players now. You can look at your active roster. You can look at your 40-man roster. You can look at every player in your organization. You can sort these out by each category, by age, by how they bat, by their overall rating, by their potential rating, by their salary. Bruce Bochy does not have a salary. Minor league minor league contract. Oh, that's interesting. Bruce Bochy, if you don't remember, became the manager of the San Diego Padres and the San Francisco Giants. Won a couple of World Series. You may have heard of him. He was a very young player back in the day. Actually, he was an unknown player at the time I started following the Angels. Nobody knew he would grow to be a pretty strong manager. One of the other things that you can do when you're setting up the game, and this is where in that setup phase you would want to go in and into a little more detail, you can actually turn these statistical ratings off. And that's you become what's called a stats-only league. So you don't have the ratings to look at. You only have the actual stats to try to determine how good or bad a player might be. So a lot of this, your star rating, these ratings you'll lose. You can still, you can judge speed, fielding percentages, arm, but you wouldn't see this. And it makes it a lot more difficult, but probably a little more realistic, especially from the point that, you're basically evaluating players just like in real life. When you come into the player, you can see his profile, his current contract, his if you have signed an extension, the terms of his extension. You can negotiate from here. You can look at scouting reports. These scouting reports will update periodically. If your scouts will kind of look here, and because we also were looking at our personnel, you can look at your scouts, player scouting. Here we go. So we have no scouting in the game, so they're just those are what they are. If you had scouting, then all of these, and what now, watch this. I moved a couple of screens. If you just want to, you can hit the back arrow and you can get right back to your guy, to the screen you were at to proceed from. So use your back and forth arrows if you're moving back and forth between a couple of screens to where you don't have to navigate. But that is something that you're that can kind of throw another monkey wrench into the evaluation process. How good your scout is. So like he's a 6-7. So we know he has 7 potential because everything is basically exact and it's based on the last 3 years, right? That's what we did in our setup. Well, if we had scouting turned on, let's say we had a great scout, it might still only show, say, a 5-6. He might really be a 7, but our scout's saying he's a 6 because nobody's perfect. If we had a bad scout, well, the scout might say he's a 5 potential or a 4 potential. Might even say he's a 10 potential. Could make an error in either direction, and the worse he is, the bigger that error might be. Or maybe he got it right. You just never know. So while they're turned on, this makes it a little more, little easier to follow and not as much guesswork. So I certainly recommend playing with this if you're new to the game, but as you kind of get a feel for the game and you want to, dial up your own personal difficulty level, and that's basically what it is. Some games, when you start the game, it says, what difficulty level do you want? Do you want beginner, intermediate, average, hard, or, what do they call, permadeath or something like that? Basically we're on beginner intermediate mode because we've kind of got all these these little cheats for us to give us exact information. You can turn those off, you can change them a little bit and dial up that difficulty rating if you wanted to. So that's dealing with players. Of course, you have your pitching lineup here, and this is where now there's a couple of ways to do this. You can go to available actions and ask your bench coach, and he will assign everybody. You can change this from anywhere from a 1-man to a 6-man rotation. A 5-man rotation was common at this time because of the complete games. Or they'd go 8 innings. 7 innings was considered a short game for them. They'd go 7 or 8 innings, possibly even a complete game, and so they needed that extra day of rest. As we got more into the bullpen era, you were able to cut back to a 4-man roster because they were only going 5, maybe 6 innings a night. So they were saving their arm a little bit. What you can also do is, hey, I want Ryan to be number 1. You can drag these guys around. I want my left-handers, broken up in the rotation. So you could stagger them however you want. You can change who's going to start. This is their information. So let's say that Ryan had just pitched a game in the last 2 or 3 days. He would have a little bar here that would show like it was like low power, and that would tell you that he was tired and you couldn't start him. Or if you did start him, maybe he'd only last 3 innings in that game. So that's how you work with pitching. You can sort out by statistics. You can sort out by career statistics. Let's see. Split. We can look at last year's numbers if we want to. Then we can sort by average or ERA. And then we can make our decisions from there. Same thing in your lineup. Here's your position players. They start off sorted out by position. You can actually go into your depth chart, and that shows, so like right now I can see immediately I do not have a backup center fielder. Evidently Lalude cannot play center field. Ron Jackson cannot play center field. So I do not have a backup center fielder. So if Mickey ever gets tired or hurt, I'll have to make a move at that point. So maybe that's something I want to consider. Maybe Ron Jackson's only playing one position here as a third string outfielder, and he can only play. Well, he's my backup third baseman too. Maybe Doherty. He's my third string first baseman, and that's the only position he can play. Maybe I don't want him there. So let's go ahead and I'm going to right click on him, transaction, and I'm going to demote to Lincoln. All right. Now we come down here to these arrows, and you'll notice we only have 24 players. Well, I don't have anybody in AA or single A. And that's the option that we chose, to not have full minor league rotations. And I need to find somebody that can play center field. Well, these green arrows are indicators. Okay, Danny Goodwin's not quite good enough for AAA, so I'm going to go ahead and move him down to AA, actually single A, and it says he's just not very good for that. Now it might take a sim. Maybe that's what it is. I think that might take a sim to change over now. That if so, I think that's new. You know, we need to progress that. And Morris Nettles can play center field. He can play all three outfield locations. So we're going to go ahead and call him up. Now, before I do that, he's on a minor league contract. What happens if I bring him up to the big club? Well, he's going to actually get a major league contract. And so now if we pull him up, okay, so again, it does take maybe a day to process it. And this is during spring training too. During the season, that should adjust automatically. All right, so I want him up to have in center field. We'll go back to our depth chart. I like the graphical, but you can use your lineup overview. You can sort it by, you can dial it in as detailed as you want. You can actually specify over the next 7 days for each player. I want, and you see that sometimes where okay, well, this player struggles against left-handed pitchers, and on Wednesday we're facing a lefty. I want him to take that day off, so we'd move him into the off day. You just change that here and tell it when you want it to stop, and after 7 days it'll do that. That's getting pretty detailed. Nothing wrong with it, just more than I do. So we're back here. I've got that player change, so let's just ask our bench coach. All right, and there's Morris Nettles. He's our backup center fielder. He also fits in at the corners. And it's moved Bill Sadakis, our backup catcher, also to first base because I have demoted that guy. We've got 4 bats on the bench, so we're okay. So, you know, that's kind of the walkthrough. You have your site, you have your manager's mail. This gives you league date, so that's good to check. Your lineup and rotation are here. You can see league transactions. That'll be a place maybe that you see that somebody's been put on waivers. That, you know, hey, maybe I'm interested in that player. Here's your salary. I've only got a 1-year contract for $23,000, so I might get fired at the end of the season. If we're not doing well, I could get fired before the All-Star break. League news. This isn't just you, but this is anything that's league related. Our next game is opening day, April 7th. We're at May 1st, so we have a month of spring training, which starts on March 3rd, and then opening day is April 7th. You can search for a player. You can look for free agents. You have settings. This is where you can change your manager settings. You can actually set this up to tweet stuff from your league to your Twitter account. That's pretty funny. Let's see, default time zone. password if you wanted a password. Typically you would do that if you were in an online league. Control and autoplay. So if you want your assistant coach to make certain decisions, you can set that up here. If you're auto playing, where you're playing say a week or 2 weeks or a month, and but if a player gets hurt, well, if he's out for more than 3 days, the game will stop, and you can change that if you want it for any injury. If he's out at least a week, if he's out at least 2 weeks, up to you. So you can always do this. Manage your notes. That's if you make notes on a player. Your mail, your office, that's all these here. Your Major League Baseball, which is this tab here. All this is basically this navigational bar here. Okay, so you have news, standings. There's your news, there's your standings, there's your statistics, there's your transactions, news, settings. So, a lot of duplication sometimes, which is okay. Let's see. So there's you can look at the full standings. You can look by just the sub leagues, which would be, we don't even have wild cards at this point, I don't think. The pennant chase as you get in the final 30 days. Expanded standings, which shows your magic number and a little bit more detailed information how you're doing here. And then your team information, again, you'll have your schedule, your top prospects as that plays out. And then when you go to play, you can hit play. You can play just today. You can auto play till the next game, which in this case would be a month away. We can go to next week. So let's just do next week and see what happens. All right. I have an email. So something has happened to cause the sim to stop. All right, so spring training is beginning. Bill Campbell of the Twins changed his diet and is in great shape. So you'll get emails from around the league. Let's go back and do the week again. All right. Remember, we had the setup for 3 days. Don Kirkwood, sore back. Morris Nettles is banged up, but he's day to day. You can see the color change. He's moderate for 3 days. So he's my relief pitcher. So do I want to go in and change it? Well, maybe not. The manager may or may not use him. If he pitches while he's hurt, he could get hurt again or worse. But it's only 3 days. A hand contusion, he's out for 6 days. So these are where you can change around players. Let's see. Also, while you're doing that, okay, we went to the pitchers. Well, you'll notice this little arrow. So we also have our AAA team. And if you don't have it set up for the manager to make all the decisions, you have to come in and set those up yourself. And it behooves you to check your minor leagues at least once a week. And then when you go to your fielders, you can do the same thing. All right, so we can check all that. Now, let's see. 2 of these we didn't have anybody. All right, there's Danny Goodwin. All right, and I still have 2 emails. Oh, Paul Mitchell from Baltimore. Torn ulnar collateral ligament, and he is done for the season here in spring training. All right, Grote from Jerry Grote, the catcher for the Mets, on the DL. Torn back muscle. He'll miss 5 or 6 weeks. And you can track that. Okay, do I have an extra catcher? Maybe I can facilitate a trade with the Mets if they need a, with their catcher being hurt. So it behooves you to pay attention to all of this information, And then again, in your news, if there's certain things that you're getting and you go, I really don't need to see that, turn it off, and then it won't stop it for that. That was the timer. I think again, we've covered all of the toolbars, how to get around. We've simmed a little bit so you can kind of see some of the action. It sims pretty quickly, pretty darn quick. It's optimized pretty well. That's never been an issue with an out of the park release, at least not that I'm aware of. And I'll be, full honesty here. As I said, I started playing around OOTP 3, really got into it at OOTP 6, and OOTP 10 kind of killed it for me. They changed some things that they were doing at that time. They partnered up with another company, and I did not think it went well. I was not happy with the game that was released at that time. That partnership is no longer in place, to my knowledge, and it's back to being Marcus's baby. And he takes a lot of pride in this game. I actually ran a league for a long while. They actually ran a contest for leagues, and we were rated we won a silver award as the second number 2 league, fictional league at that time. Still in contact with a few of the guys from that league, and that's been a long time. I mean, version 6, that's been 12 years since that version of the game came out. Still remember one of my pitchers, Mo Fix. It was a fictional guy, and boy, he was a stud. I'm always on the lookout for the next Mo Fix when I play. But there's a lot of depth to these games, to this game in particular. If you're a stat nerd, if you're a stat junkie, baseball has got to be the sport for you. There's just so many numbers to look at, and the depth to the game is... The only other game that I've seen that has come close to it is Football Manager, which is FM Football Manager. EA Sports, I think, does that. It's regarded potentially as the premier, quote unquote, sim game out there. I'll be honest, I've played FM Football Manager through several versions, and it's never really kept my attention. I'm a big fan of soccer. Actually, that was my sport playing growing up, but it's so in-depth and so detailed, I have never been able to figure out how to play the game. As far as making your lineups and game planning, I've never been able to figure it out and do well. And I always have to rely on basically mods that give you a game plan and format, and then play with that. And to me, then I sit there and I go, well, all I'm doing is playing what somebody else has already done, and it's work. So basically, it's a hack basically, and am I happy doing that? But whereas in football games that I play in OOTP, which is the baseball game that I play. They're easy to understand. They're not overcomplicated to set up and get into, and but what I do like about it is it gives you a lot of options. We talked about some of them. Do you want to play a historical league? Do you want to play a fictional league? Do you want to play a modern day league? Do you want to play a league that's jumbled up with players from all eras? And then just the ability to get in and like looking at the players. Do you want these things turned on? Do you want them turned off and make it a little harder? I mean, let's put it this way: this guy we know has the good ability to hit the ball because he's a 6 out of 10, and he's going to get a little bit better. And he's got he doesn't have any home run power, but he would be good He doesn't strike out. He's got good power to the gaps. That makes him an ideal number 2 guy or even a leadoff guy, but he's got speed, the ability to steal and base run aggressively. He makes a great number 2 guy or a leadoff guy, and his expectation is to be at the top of the order. So you have to keep in mind a great average in baseball is 300, 320, 330. Okay, so an average would be 260 to 280 typically. So I'd expect this guy to hit in the 280 range with these ratings. Okay, but look what he's doing. He's hitting, now granted we're only in spring, but he's hitting, what is that year to date? I mean, that's probably about, well, let's see, 1 for 13, so he's hitting under 100 for the season. Although that 125, okay, so he's hitting 125 for the season. That's not very good, and that's not what I expect here. Now, does that mean he's a bust? Does it mean he's in a slump? When I have this to fall back on, I can justify this more. But if all you're seeing is this, you go, wow, maybe I'm just going to cut this guy. Well, he's 22. Somebody else picks him up, and then he starts hitting 280 for him, and you go, oh, I feel like an idiot. Or, you sign the guy and you go, oh, I'm a genius. So the game offers so much flexibility and almost as much detail as you want. Let's see. I want to see. So we can, we can go day to day, week to week, month to month. Oh, they had a fight with a hitting coach. That's interesting. And that's what I think is great about the game. Hopefully that has gotten you some answers on how to navigate around, how to get into the game. Just get in and have fun with it. What I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of leave this with these 2 videos on how to get in. If you have any questions, ask them below in the comments on my YouTube channel. And then, always go over to the Out of the Park forums and get set up over there. In fact, I will see if I can find. There they are. So if you want to go to the Out of the Park forums, it's ootpdevelopments.com/board, and that gets you in. They have general discussions, 18 specific discussions, 17. They've got a hockey game, and you can see the activity here. I mean, just on 18, which was released today, 6,134 posts, 477 replies, dynasties of other people's playing, mods that you may want to add into your game. There's all technical support if you're having issues. New to the game, questions if you're new. They cater to new people. They have people that go out of their way to help new people get into the game. So certainly recommend going to their forum, signing up for it, and utilizing their knowledge, which is much greater than mine. I'm actually on the forums, but I don't visit a ton. But I am on every once in a while. So definitely check out their forums. Ask questions of anything in the video below. If there's something specific that you're not grasping, let me know, and I'll see if I can maybe pull a video together to show that in particular for you. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to hop in and I'm going to actually play for a while. I think there's a couple of things I want to turn off just for me personally. So I'm probably going to start a new league, start to play it, get a season or two under my belt, and then I'll come back and I'll actually do a review of the game. As I said, I have high expectations for this game, for in general, not necessarily this version, but the game itself. Marcus has set a very high bar for the game he puts out, the quality of the game, the support that they give people that buy the game and play the game. Naturally, you can see if they're on version 18 at one release a year. He's been around for almost 2 decades and tweaking this game every year, and every year he adds a little bit more to it. As I said, version 10, I think he added and changed too much, and it really took a step back, my opinion. But he's come back and fixed that. I really liked version 16, 17, which we're currently playing in the online league that I'm in. Is a semi-stats only league, and really enjoying that. And we really like version 17. So we are, and we just recently changed too. So not sure if we're going to change to 18, but we are already talking about it. A lot of leagues will sometimes skip a version, just because you might only play two seasons, maybe 3 in the course of a real calendar year. So to be upgrading every game, if you're happy with what you have, sometimes doesn't make sense fiscally for all your owners. And that's kind of where we're at right now. We're kind of in debate whether we want to change at some point, but we're just finishing our first season in version 17, so odds are we'll probably go 1 or 2 more seasons, and then maybe between the All-Star break and the end of the real season this year, 2017, then we may consider upgrading to version 18 of the game here. But there are a couple of things. I'll try to get the change notes for my review so I can see exactly what they've added in. And then we can kind of discuss some of that in my review as well. So again, hopefully this has helped you kind of understand the game, see what it is, what it has. Give it a try. I'm not sure if they have a demo or not. I think most games typically do, where you can go in and play maybe a week or even a season. I don't know. Don't quote me on that by any means. But if they do, check the demo out. But again, Marcus really puts a lot of pride and effort into the game. It's been viable, or otherwise they wouldn't have lasted for 18 years and grown every year. Even to the point where, and I don't know if you're aware, but licensing with Major League Baseball PA, I don't know what that costs, but I guarantee as greedy as baseball players and the PA are, I can guarantee it probably was not cheap. Just from an outsider's perspective, I'm sure that was not a small check that had to be written to the Major League Baseball players to put their names into this game. Injuries, the ability to change how detailed the game is, the ability to have total control of a team, contract extensions, roster moves, and those roster moves could affect player development. If you move a guy from the minors to the pros too quick, he could bust. He may never develop. If you move him up from single A to double A too fast, he may struggle and have to be sent back to single A. So do you send him up the week he's ready, or do you wait a month to make sure he's really dialed in? Those are all questions that you are the only one that can answer for your game. So check it out. Definitely a game worth having on your computer. It is available, as I said, through their website at OOTP Development for direct download, or you can get it through Steam as well. I started playing most of my games on Steam about 3 years ago. Love it. Haven't had any issues whatsoever. But I understand people that don't want their games tied up, um, and that's fine. Um, but it gives you options. So again, I look forward to any questions or comments that you might have. I look forward to getting in and we'll play a little bit, and then we'll come back and probably do, well, we definitely will do some type of review video, but I want to have a little time in the game in this version before I actually make a review of it. But again, I have high hopes for the game, high expectations for sure, and that's just because they've set the bar at a certain level, and I think if they don't at least meet or exceed that bar, then they failed. I've been playing since version 3, and I think they've only done that once. Now, it cost me as a customer I didn't come back till version 14, so I was away from the game for about 3 or 4 years. Now, I didn't quit playing it. I was just playing a previous version. I went back to version 8 because I had skipped version 9. I went back to version 8, and I played that for several years. And I was just while they were tied in with EA, I just wasn't interested. I wasn't happy with that release. And then when they broke ties, then I started hearing a lot of good things again, and that's what got me back into the fold. And again, you can see on my my Steam, I mean, I go all the way back to 15 now. I've now had the game every year for 4 years. And I don't play much solo play anymore because I'm more into the camaraderie and community of multiplayer leagues. So that's and as we upgrade, you get the new version to keep playing with the guys. So I have really gone over my imposed time limit this time. I do apologize. I just didn't see the need for a third video based on what I was going to hit here, and just wanted to tie it up. Look for my review. That'll probably be, I don't know. I don't want to guarantee anything, but like I said, I want to get 1 or 2 seasons in so I can kind of check out some of the new things, the new bells and whistles that have been added in for this version. I will try to find a list of the changes to the game so we can kind of go over that, and then we can discuss how they've affected the game compared to previous versions. And then I'll get that video up at some point down the road, maybe a few weeks or so, but I will be working on playing and doing that. Thanks for checking out this video, and then like I said, be looking for my review down the road. Thanks very much, and have a good one.